Throughout the GameCube's life cycle, the console saw a very healthy library of first-party and third-party titles. And while there are so many hidden gems to still discover, there are still some games that I felt generated almost no conversations at the school lunch tables back in the day. Many that may actually be classified as hidden gems, and there are some that may genuinely have a reason to not be talked about much. In this episode, myself, as well as my GameCube brother RetroWolf88, have decided to select 5 games each that we felt no one ever talks about, for better or worse. So, with that being said, let's dive into this episode. First up is Bloody Roar Primal Fury, published by Activision and developed by Aiding. Bloody Roar is a fighting series that started on the PlayStation 1, and I first tried it out back when PlayStation 1 Classics were releasing on the PlayStation 3. A buddy of mine always recommended this game to me back on the PS1, and when I finally tried it, I thought it was actually a pretty cool fighting game. Now, the GameCube got this exclusive new installment, and I remember that reviews weren't too high on this one back then. Diving into this, I was hoping for just a competent fighter, and what I got was exactly that and more. Bloody Roar's main hook isn't just picking a fighter to go one-on-one, but the fact that each fighter has a beast form transformation. This opens up the fighting mechanics tremendously and makes for some intense battles. Controls are easy to pick up and play, and are quite responsive, while pulling off combos is quite approachable. One thing I have to note here are also its visuals. For a game that came out only a few months after the GameCube launched, this game is gorgeous. The highly detailed character models, 60 frames a second gameplay, and the vibrant art style really make this game pop out. In some ways, it reminds me of Dead or Alive's visual style. While GameCube owners tended to resort to Super Smash Bros. Melee, Mortal Kombat, or Soul Calibur 2 for their fighting game needs, no one ever mentions about Bloody Roar Primal Fury, and it's one that never got the appreciation I think it deserved. It's definitely a very cool fighting game that is worth checking out.
Ready, fight!
The GameCube is not known for its puzzle games, and that is with good reason. Take ZooCube, for instance. Released on the GameCube in North America on May 5th, 2002, this lesser-known little gem of a puzzle game is both obscure and incredibly unique at the same time. Developed by Puzzle Kings and published by Acclaim Entertainment, ZooCube has you rotating a cube in the center of the screen in any direction as animal shapes fall from various directions matching the faces of the cube. The shapes stack up on all sides, and if any side exceeds 5 shapes, you lose the level. So your goal is to stack similar shapes so that they disappear, and besides rotating a cube, you can also juggle the order of the shapes on a particular side of the cube. ZooCube is packed full of game modes, and I found myself unable to put it down once it started to click. So if you're looking for a lesser known puzzle game on the GameCube that is incredibly quirky and unique, then ZooCube is the game for you.
Next up is Roadkill, published by Midway and developed by Terminal Reality. So, what happens when a certain virus breaks out, the government tries to mandate lockdowns, lies to the people, and then tells you what to do? Well, you get a post-apocalyptic game, of course, that is part Grand Theft Auto and part Twisted Metal. Roadkill has you in control of Mason Strong, in which you drive around rundown cities filled with gang wars and scarce resources. And complete missions for factions trying to take over Hell County. It's much like GTA in the sense of the mission structure, open world, and radio stations that you can scroll across as you drive around, as well as even saving the game by parking in a garage at your safe house. However, you won't get out of your vehicle at all. Instead, every vehicle you drive has a mounted turret on it, and you can pick up other weapons as well to fire away, hence the Twisted Metal inspiration in the game. The game world is pretty wild, and the cutscenes are pretty laughable at times, but it's all part of the game's post-apocalyptic lawlessness. As you explore, you will collect resources that can be used to upgrade your vehicle and will be essential as missions will ramp up in difficulty. Visually, the game can look a little bit muddy and animations can seem a bit off, but it's nothing awful by any means. So far from the time I put into this game, it's definitely an interesting premise and one I'd like to cover more in depth in a review on the channel. Being that it's part GTA and part Twisted Metal, I'm kinda surprised no one really spoke about this one much.
And I'm out.
Alright, we're back here on Love Time at 104.9 D-Love. Hello, caller.
We need to pick up some weapons. Let's head over to Shoot Your Load Guns.
Give me a very big boner.
Did he say boner?
Sir, do you have a question?
No, but I have a boner. Very big. Very, very big.
Really?
Sir, bite me. Next caller.
So many people know about Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers and Lord of the Rings: Return of the King on the Nintendo GameCube, but what a lot of people don't realize is that there was a game based on The Hobbit, and it is fantastic. It released on the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox on November 11, 2003 and was developed by Inevitable Entertainment and published by Sierra Entertainment. Being a licensed adaptation of the novel, The Hobbit takes you through the story of the book from start to finish and even features some pretty decent voice acting and cutscenes to push the story forward. The gameplay centers around platforming, hack and slash combat, light puzzles, and quests to complete as you make your way through each level in this epic adventure. There are various objectives to complete in each level as well as currencies and collectibles to find and upgrades to purchase. The gameplay isn't perfect and certainly has its frustrations, but they are few and far between, and The Hobbit is a very enjoyable adventure with tons of charm and great music. I highly recommend it.
Next up is Summoner: A Goddess Reborn, published by THQ and developed by Volition. This is actually an enhanced port of Summoner 2 for the PlayStation 2. You take the role of Maya, a queen that has been reborn as the goddess of Lahara. In this massive quest, Maya will discover that she is prophesized to heal the Tree of Ele, which is responsible for giving life to the world. Summoner: A Goddess Reborn is an action RPG in which combat is handled in real time, but you can use spells that freezes time and lets you choose who to make an action on. You can party up to 3 members at once, and they will assist you throughout the journey ahead. You can lock onto enemies, block them, and pull off combos, while also letting the AI jump in for more combo damage. You can naturally level up characters and increase attributes that unlock either stronger abilities or new abilities altogether, as well as equip new gear acquired to boost stats. It's funny, this is one that I thought was a turn-based game back in the day, because 14-year-old me thought that, well, all RPGs were turn-based. And had I known that wasn't really the case, I would have nabbed this one sooner back then. During my time with this though, I have to say I was getting pretty hooked into it, and I found the gameplay to be pretty refreshing in some ways. Visually, the game looks pretty nice, if not a little bit dated, but it does have a vibrant color palette and good texture work. I had a hard time putting this game down during my time with it so far, and it's a shame that no one talks about it really. If you like action RPGs and are itching for a new experience, especially on the GameCube, this is one that's definitely worth checking out.
Games on the GameCube are an extreme rarity, with only a handful of them being on the platform, Blowout being one of those 2D games, and it's a game that a lot of people don't even know exists. Blowout is sort of a 2.5D run and gun game that might remind you ever so slightly of games like Contra and Metal Slug, except much slower paced and methodical in its exploration and combat. Blowout released on the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox on October 28, 2003 and was developed by Terminal Reality and published by Majesco Entertainment. In Blowout, you will fight your way through 10 levels in an alien-infested space station called the Honor Guard hard as you blast aliens, find secrets and new weapons, and just plain survive. Each level is a labyrinth to explore, not unlike a Metroid game, as you gain power-ups, blast through walls, and fight bosses. Blowout is certainly not the best run and gun game in the world, but if you're looking for a lesser known game to scratch that 2D run and gun itch, then Blowout is a fantastic and a relatively cheap choice that I recommend.
Next up is SRS Street Racing Syndicate, published by Namco and developed by Utonix. Interestingly, this was a game originally being published by 3DO, but then the company filed for bankruptcy, and so Namco decided to spend $1.5 million to acquire the publishing rights for this game. Anyway, at a time when street racing was insanely popular thanks to the Fast and the Furious films, and Need for Speed Underground was killing it as the first racing experience that captured that era, SRS was looking to be a competitor and try its own take on the street racing scene. Instead of being only nighttime races, the game lets you race in the daytime as well, which Need for Speed Underground did not do at the time. You will live the life of a street racer, wagering bets for races, winning that sweet moolah to buy new cars, upgrade those cars, maybe get some NOS installed. However, one of the game's selling points were the women. Not only were you racing for money, but you were racing for respect, so that chicks dig you. Do well enough, and you'll get dance videos to watch as a reward. So, why hasn't this game been talked about? Well, honestly, Need for Speed Underground 1 and 2's success was so prevalent that going up against that was a big feat to tackle. SRS plays well, and it has good control physics, but it definitely lacks in the visuals department compared to its competitor. While it does run at 60 frames a second, which is pretty awesome, the texture work and lighting do take a hit because of that. That being said, at the time when everyone was talking about Need for Speed Underground, everyone flocked to the cool thing, and hence SRS Street Racing Syndicate was left in the dust. What's here isn't bad at all though, and if you're looking for something other than Need for Speed to fill the import street racing scene, I'd say that SRS is still worth checking out.
There's literally only a single pole game on the Nintendo GameCube in North America, and that game is Pole Paradise, and nobody ever talks about it, and it's awesome. Pole Paradise was released on the GameCube in North America on June 28, 2004, and it is a game that I used to have as a teenager, and I played the hell out of it, and still to this day, it is one of my favorite pole games ever made. Pole Paradise was developed by Awesome Developments and published by Ignition Entertainment, and it is a pole game with a lot of depth, therefore requiring a lot of skill and practice to get good. You have full control over your cue stick, multiple camera angles, full control over shot power, and you can of course pick where you want to strike the ball and put spin on it or even jump shots. In addition to the depth of gameplay, there are a metric crap ton of game types, game modes, unlockable secrets, and customizations, giving Pole Paradise a ridiculous amount of content to sink your teeth into. I still to this day cannot wrap my brain around why Pole Paradise is so lesser known, but what I do know is that it is awesome, and you should play it, like right now. Go buy it and play it.
To wrap up my list is Scalar, published by Global Star Software and developed by A2M. Scalar is a 3D platformer in which you play as Bobby Scalar Jenkins, who gets caught up in stopping reptilian humanoids, and in the process, an alternate dimension opens up that turns Bobby into a lizard-like creature. Now, he must put a stop to them and find a way back home in the process. The best way to describe Scalar is that it is very much like a Ratchet & Clank style platformer, in which it even pays homage by every level starting with this dynamic camera angle that shows the level before starting to move around. Scalar can attack enemies with his claws and do 3-hit combos, and can also use his tongue to quickly attack as well. You will collect these orbs here that enemies and objects drop, which can be used to upgrade Scalar's health and overall abilities, and each level also has 10 eggs that are worth 500 of these orbs each. Additionally, Scalar will be able to transform into other creatures and use their abilities to further advance through levels, as well as go back to previous levels to find more items with newfound abilities. Much like the Ratchet & Clank games, there are even grind rail segments that control identical to the latter series, and it's very welcome. Controls are incredibly responsive here, and everything about it is just a fun time overall. I remember seeing this on the shelves back in the day, and oftentimes in a bargain bin, and it's a shame I didn't try this one sooner. No one really seems to talk about this one, but man, if you're a fan of Ratchet & Clank style platformers, I highly recommend this one. It's the best alternative to that series for the GameCube.
Alright, let's talk about the last game for me, and that's Tonka Rescue Patrol. Tonka Rescue Patrol is a GameCube exclusive released on November 18th, 2003 and was developed by Lucky Chicken Games and published by TDK Mediactive. This is probably one of the most lesser known games on my list, and that is with good reason. Tonka Rescue Patrol is boring. I would go as far as to say this is one of the most boring games on the Cube because as I was playing it, I was falling asleep after consuming almost 100 milligrams of caffeine. In Tonka Rescue Patrol, you control one of 6 vehicles, being dump truck, crane, bulldozer, fire truck, police cruiser, and helicopter as you navigate a city and complete tasks. The problem is that literally all of these tasks simply have you driving to a spot and pressing the A button. That's literally the gameplay of this game explained in 2 sentences. This is a game for toddlers, and I will likely never touch this game again. Don't play it. Well, except for Eric from Retro Gaming Pandemic, this is totally a game for him.
Press the B button to run the siren and clear the traffic.
Don't worry, Eric, I'll buy you a copy later. Marcello, thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this awesome collab on one of the best, if not the best, GameCube channels on YouTube.
In some ways, many of these games can be considered hidden gems, and the occasional case, not so much. So, have you played any of these games? Sound off in the comments below, as we'd love to hear your thoughts. I also want to give a big thank you to my buddy Matt, aka RetroWolf88, for joining in on this collab video. If you haven't checked out the RetroWolf88 channel, there will be a link in the description down below. He also covers various GameCube content, but more so, he's been videoing his journey to rebuild his complete North American GameCube set from scratch, and it has been a blast watching that journey. Additionally, he's also started a new channel alongside his nephew Devin called VHS Voyage, which has them watching old films on VHS and providing their thoughts on them. I highly recommend you check out both channels and subscribe if you haven't yet. And if you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button down below and subscribe if you haven't done so yet for more GameCube gaming content. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next video.